Hi, everyone. This is Jen Mark with Buzzcast podcast for the Ontario Athletic Therapists Association. With me today are our two award winners from the Trillium Award. In 2020, we have Wendy Hampson, and 2021, Marcia Franklin. Welcome to both of you. Wendy, tell me a little bit about who you are and kind of how you got into athletic therapy.
Well, I started getting interested in athletic therapy when I was in third year of university at McMaster University. And Bobby Holmes, who was the trainer at the time at Mac, taught an extracurricular course that in sports injuries, and that got me all excited. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. Boom, yes, that's what I want to do is athletic therapy. So he told me about the only program in Canada at the time was at Sheridan College in Oakville. And so I signed up for that, and I was able to get a year with my phys ed degree. I was able to get a year of advanced standing, and so I did it in 1 year at Sheridan. Not enough time really to learn a whole lot of stuff, but I ended up at Laurentian University for 33 years after that.
That's so great. It's such a great story, because really you were at the very beginning of athletic therapy and really how it unfolded and where it's come from, and it's come so far. Marcia, tell me a little bit about where you're coming from.
I chose athletic therapy in grade 10. I was watching the news with my dad, and I saw Fred Dunbar taping an ankle on TV. And I said to my dad, that's what I'm going to do. I was watching news. It was probably a 10-second newsreel about the Argonauts, and it just showed Fred taping this ankle up. There was nothing else to it. And I just made my decision based on that. So it really wasn't an informed decision, but it was the right decision for me. And I went to school the next day and told my gym teacher that I wanted to do that. And he told me there's a program at Sheridan College for that. And the rest was history. I didn't get in the first time I applied. I applied to athletic therapy. I applied to human kinetics. I applied to physiotherapy. I got into all of the other programs, but I didn't get into athletic therapy. So I took a year off and did the things that I needed to do to bring my score up. And I got in the second time. It might just be, it was a naive decision, but I just set my sights that this is what I wanted to do. And I really didn't know that much about it, to be honest with you. I knew he was helping out athletic people, and I wanted to be able to do that. And so I just started down the path. I didn't ever take the time to think, well, maybe I won't get a job when I get out, or maybe I won't have a place to work. It's kind of was, well, we'll deal with whatever comes when it comes.
When you first started into your athletic therapy, there was a lot of men. It was a male-dominated career. Tell me a little bit about how you got in, you survived, and you really excelled.
Maybe I was naive, but I didn't really notice a big problem, a big issue with it being male-dominated. At Laurentian, I was hired by the director of athletics, who was a woman, and by another professor who was a woman, and they were so supportive of me my whole career that I didn't really notice at Laurentian anyway. I didn't really notice that there was an issue. When I first started, though, in 1979, I was on a 16-week OCAP program, which was Ontario Careers Action Program. So 50% of my salary was paid by the Ontario government. The other 50% was paid by the university. And so for the first semester, I had to prove myself. And I walked into Laurentian there was an open room with 2 plinths and a desk, and that was it. No equipment. I had to build the clinic up from the bottom. It took 7 years of 3-month contracts, 12-month contracts, work with Cambridge College half the time, work with Laurentian University half the time, before I finally ended up getting a full-time position. And one of those years I did apply to another college in the Toronto area, and I was told afterwards that the reason I was not given the job after a second interview was because I was a woman and I would probably go off and get married, and that would be the end of it. And yeah, exactly. And there were a couple of times working with teams where there were some male-female issues. I was turned down from volunteering with the CFL team in the late 70s, early 80s, because I was a woman. The guys would shower in the change room. then they would walk through the trainer's room into the dressing room to get changed. And so therefore they couldn't have a woman in the training room because the guy, you'd be walking, seeing all these naked men back and forth. Well, heaven forbid. So there were a few male-female issues with sports teams, but not so much when I was working, which was nice. I was very, very, very supported by women administrators at the university.
Marcia, can you talk to me about some of the hurdles and some of the things you sort of needed to overcome when you were establishing yourself in your career?
So once again, I'm not sure how well I thought this through, but I loved what I did, but I didn't like being confined to the 10-minute time cycle or the 15-minute at clinics that you worked at, that they would tell you you've got 15 minutes with this patient or 20 minutes or whatever it was. I loved professional development, so I loved learning new techniques and new ways to treat people. And so I didn't want somebody telling me I could only spend this much time with a person if they needed a different amount of time. So I decided that I was going to try and start my own clinic. One of the orthopedic surgeons in town, Dr. Tim Deacon, he came into town about the same time that I did, and he sent his patients to the Sheridan Clinic, which at the time I was the technician that was running the Sheridan teaching clinic. So he sent a lot of his patients there. So I had a lot of communication with him. He also encouraged me to go out on my own. And so I didn't know if I actually could because nobody else had done it. So I went and found a lawyer and said, so this is what I want to do. Am I allowed to set up a practice? Because nobody had done it. So she had to research it because she didn't have an answer for me. And she said, as long as you can get like a malpractice or errors and omission insurance, as long as you have that, you can hang out a shingle being whoever you want to be. So we had that through the CATA. And so I found a building, I found a unit, I started it up, and I had six appointments the first week. It was a pretty open schedule. And my mother came and helped out, sort of being a receptionist and picking up the coffee because I probably couldn't afford coffee myself. And so she worked with me for years, and it just built over time. And I didn't actually even market it at the time because I wasn't sure how it would be received. In those days, there was a lot of animosity between different professions. And so I was a little bit nervous that if certain professionals heard I was opening up as an AT, they might create trouble for me. And so I really didn't even market very much. I sort of touched base with a few physicians, and Dr. Deacon, that orthopedic surgeon, he was incredibly supportive. And then it just grew by word of mouth. Mm-hmm.
That's great. So fantastic. It's such a great story. What other kind of hurdles did you have in building your practice?
The biggest one, when I took on the job at Laurentian in 1979, no one had ever heard of athletic therapy. No one had ever heard of an athletic therapist. And there were no athletic therapists in Ontario beyond Barrie at the time. And so the biggest hurdle I had was to introduce myself to people and tell them who I was and what I could do. Now, when I first started at Laurentian, the clinic was open only to the varsity athletes and the students. So they learned very quickly that I was able to help them. When we started opening up to the general public, my name had been out there for a number of years already. So that made a big difference, and teaching the courses made a big difference. But to try to befriend some of the physiotherapists, not to badmouth the physios, but back then there was a lot of infighting between the athletic therapists and the physios. The physios looked at us as a threat. So I was not allowed to get into any of their any of their courses, and they looked at me with a jaundiced eye, basically. And so I had to go out there, so I didn't just have the whole trouble of no one knowing what athletic therapy was or what I could offer them, but I also had other professions actively trying to keep me down. So those were the big hurdles back then, was the other professions and just trying to get your name out there.
And what about the rewards? What were some of the things that really drove you and were so grateful in your profession, in your time as an athletic therapist?
Well, the rewards were terrific. First of all, I got to treat people the way I wanted to treat them. I didn't have anybody telling me how much time I could spend with people or what I could do or couldn't do. So that was wonderful. I could set my own hours. And really over the years, you turn into almost a family practice. You see people, you see their families, you see them again 3 years later for something different. I look back on my career now and I'm 35 plus years into it. And the people I'm still seeing for this, that, or the next thing, I've watched them, their kids grow up. I see their kids, I see their kids now. It's a really, really rewarding career. If you're a personal person and you like interpersonal relationships, it's a really rewarding career because you're helping people, you're building relationships with people, and you in fact are getting life experience through their life experiences because they tell you about all of these things. So my career has been, you can hardly call it work because it's been such a great thing. And I will tell you, when I had my concussion, work actually made my head feel better. Yeah. Because I was doing something that I like to do. I was doing what my brain liked to do. And so, not too many people can say that about their jobs. It's a great career. And in terms of friendships and relationships, some of my best friends are CATA members. They're not necessarily all in the OATA, they're across the country. And because we've worked together on boards, on at major games, various, certification exams, various opportunities that we work together, and you see each other every year at the conference. Truly, some of my best friends are athletic therapists that I've just met through the years.
What would you say to some especially graduating students or therapists that are looking to broach into pro sports, the bigger jobs? I don't want to say more important jobs, absolutely, but just the bigger, the pro jobs that are male dominated still. For the females, for the women who are looking to go into those jobs, what sort of any mindset or advice or things that you would like to add?
Well, just thinking back to my request to volunteer at a CFL club, get them to change the order of things so that the training room isn't in the middle of the dressing room and the showers. If that's an issue, then fix it. I think just get your name out there and be ultra professional, and educate people what you can do based on how you present yourself in the profession. If you can come across as being honest and trustworthy and educated and can offer something over and above what any other person they've ever met can offer in the world of healthcare, that's going to get you everywhere by leaps and bounds. And I think nowadays with the whole Me Too movement, et cetera, I think there's a lot more openness to accepting women on men's teams, and you see it certainly a whole lot more frequently. I was back in 1979 in Toronto. I was offered the position of being the therapist with the semi-professional football team called the Toronto Grizzlies. So for the summer, I was it. I was the one who was looking after all their injuries and leading them in all their exercise, etc. on field. And the Toronto Star was writing articles, and so it's a matter of, and I was oblivious to any, oh wow, she's a woman, working with I was probably pretty naive on that front. So it was just a couple of the guys I know sort of tried to tease me and tried to put roadblocks in front of me. I was working one hockey team, it was sort of a truckers league when I was at Sheridan, and the team room, as team rooms are in typical small arenas was an L-shaped room. And so I had set up a table just inside the room, and everybody would go into the showers at the end and shower, etc., and change. And so I didn't see anybody showering or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, but I did hear from the coach, probably about the third practice, that one of the wives had come up to him and said, "If you don't get Wendy out of the dressing room, I'm divorcing my husband." Which made us all laugh heartily, because that doesn't make any sense. But I had to fake a boyfriend at the time, and I had to have a meeting sit-down meeting with the women, with the girls and the girlfriends, and say, "Look, I'm not interested in any of your trucker guys. You're safe with me. I'm just in here to do a job, and I'm done. That's it." And everything sort of calmed down after that. But maybe, taking the women aside, and that was the other issue at the CFL. That was the other comment that I was told. Well, you're a woman, and the wives and girlfriends would complain that you're working with the team. So you have to be ultra professional, whatever you do, and just prove yourself.
Thank you so much, Wendy. So grateful to have you on today and taking the time to talk to us about some pretty important issues. We'll continue to think, in terms of, yes, we don't want to think about gender, but I think we can use gender to our advantage and be great people, not despite being women, but because we're women.
Absolutely.
So this is, and I want to thank Marcia as well for joining in on our conversation. Both of you have really been great ambassadors for our profession, and we appreciate it so much. This is Jen Mark for Buzzcast podcast for the Ontario Athletic Therapy Association. Have a great day, everybody.